Test, test. Audio check. Good afternoon.
Y'all ready? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to those who are watching on live stream. Just a reminder to those that are present, if you would like to address the school board members this evening during open forum, we ask you that you fill out one of these yellow forms, and please go ahead and turn it in to Ms. Delgado, our administrative assistant. With that being said, I now call this regular school board meeting for Gadsden Independent School District School Board to order. Today is Thursday, November 14th, and the time is 5:03. Ms. Delgado, can you please take roll call?
Ms. Flores,
Present.
Mr. Lira,
Present.
Mr. Morales,
Present.
Ms. Murillo,
Present.
Ms. Rodriguez. Madam President, we have established quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico flag. Ms. Murillo, can you please read our mission statement?
The Gadsden Independent School District will provide diverse educational opportunities that empower students to be successful in an ever-changing world. El Distrito Escolar Independiente de Gadsden brindará diversas oportunidades educativas que capacitarán a los estudiantes para tener éxito en un mundo cambiante.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3 on our agenda, Superintendent Dempsey's district updates and recognition. Superintendent Dempsey.
All right. Madam President, board members, thank you for joining us this evening. We'll begin just with a little pause. I think you're all aware we lost an important member of our community, and I would just ask for a moment of silence to remember Mr. Vicente Sanchez. Thank you. Just a note for board members, please make sure it's on your calendar. The legislative primer, I've verified the date with Las Cruces Public Schools. It is December 10th. It is in the evening. I do not have an exact time or a location at this time. As soon as I do, I will email that out to you. So I just want to make sure it is on your calendar. This is an opportunity to speak to legislators and share our platform with them, okay? The next item I have for you is, and I use the word preliminary, school designations were released to myself and I guess it would be district level administration for review about 2 weeks ago. They were formally announced this week, and so they're no longer preliminary. What I can tell you at this time, and we haven't had a lot of time with them to compare to the state, but I am, if you know a little bit about the school designations, there are listed you can be designated a spotlight, traditional, targeted support with improvement, called a TSI, additional targeted support and improvement, ATSI, comprehensive support and improvement, CSI, more rigorous interventions, CSI, MRI, and so I'll share with you Gadsden's designations. We have 4 schools in spotlight, all other schools traditional. We have no schools in trouble. If you were to ask me what creates that, at the end of the day, good teachers who care about kids, and us taking the time to continue to provide opportunities for them to grow and the training we provide. That puts us on a good path. This is only step one of it. I do believe, as I've looked at a few districts around the state, and I haven't done a really good analysis of this, far and above the state average, and some terrific growth in those individual schools. We will, though, I will tell you, as an academic services team, we're always going to be a little more critical of ourselves. And so this is the start of what we see as how do we get to the next step? How do we get every school to be a spotlight school? We did, I'll also make you aware, after those designations were started to get out, we had one of our schools visited, La Union Elementary, on Tuesday by an MPD staff and LFC staff, so Legislative Finance Council. When you asked what the goal was, they said, we need to document what you're doing so we can replicate that across our state. So I just share that with you. And then the final item we have is our student representative. We have Ms. Brianna Hernandez, who is a senior at Alta Vista Early College High School.
Good evening, Madam Board President Flores, school board members, Superintendent Dempsey, and guests. My name is Brianna Hernandez, and I am a senior at Alta Vista Early College High School, and it is my pleasure to report the latest on my school. Academic achievements, competitions, and social events. First off, I'm proud to announce that AVIX received a high NM Vistas designation for the third consecutive year. School year 2023 to 2024, Spotlight School, the highest recognition, which is the top 25% of New Mexico schools. Previously, year designations were highest recognition, School of Excellence in 2022-2023, among the top 10% of New Mexico schools. Spotlight in 2021 to 2022, among the top 15% of New Mexico schools. On October 23rd, Mrs. Brinegar had 6 BPA students attend the leadership rally at the Las Cruces Convention Center. On October 23rd, Ms. Almeida took 9 students to a chess tournament at Wiggs Middle School, where they placed 3rd. On that same day, Dr. Acuña, Ms. Campos, and 3 students, which are David Cervantes, Dana Renteria, and Alonso Garcia, competed in the KTSM Weatherfest and placed first among GISD high schools and first among EPISD and GISD high schools. On October 7th, Ms. Campos took her MESA students to the STEM Ag Career Fair Day at the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. From November 4th through November 8th, we recently concluded another successful, exciting homecoming week, consisting of a powder puff game and pep rally, followed by our homecoming dance. Looking forward, our upcoming academic and social events include our rescheduled homecoming carnival and first annual bonfire on November 21st. We anticipate this becoming an annual tradition. Our BPA sponsor, Mrs. Brinegar, is organizing and will be hosting this year's BPA Regionals at NMSU on December 6th. For the upcoming GISD STEM Festival on December 14th, STEM sponsor, Dr. Acuña, has recruited one of our teachers, Ms. Sangabi, and together we'll have 2 teams competing. Esports sponsor, Academic Counselor Ms. Angel, anticipates having 1 team compete. We have 24 seniors who are eligible for the bilingual seal and are currently preparing their portfolios, which they will present in the spring. In closing, it has been my pleasure to have shared about my school, Alta Vista Early College High School. And as always, we thank the school board, our superintendent, and the Gadsden community for your continued support. As a student of Alta Vista Early College High School, I want to express my gratitude and appreciation for how Alta Vista has been an excellent opportunity for me. This coming spring, I will be graduating with not 1, but 2 diplomas, my school diploma as well as my Associate of Science. I will begin my next chapter in the fall at UNM in pursuit of a kinesiology degree on the pre-med track. I'm looking forward to this next chapter in my education. It has been an honor to have attended this district from kinder to my last year as a 12th grader. Thank you for having me here and for your support over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Brianna, and congratulations. Okay, moving on to board member reports. I'm going to go ahead and start with board member Morales.
Thanks. I don't always get to go first. I'll be very brief. There's just a couple of things. One on the school designation. Congratulations to the school district for doing a fabulous job. I'd like to see in a future meeting a more detailed report regarding proficiency levels, specifically math, and to see where we're at in that and what the plan is to move those kids that aren't as proficient as the others. And then also, it'd be, I think, a good place to explain what each designation means, you know, spotlight, how is it defined, and traditional and all that, so that the community can understand, you know, how well the school district is doing and where, you know, where we stand. The second item is that I've had a lot of community feedback. And again, I still meet with people and talk to people in the schools and everything. And let me tell you that I've had so much positive feedback, especially regarding Ms. Villalobos' presentation at the last meeting. So if you're here, thank you for that. I've heard so much positive stuff about your report, how thorough it was, and how it makes it easier for people to understand the budget. So thank you. And then regarding the consent agenda today, there's a couple of things on there. The quarterly report, which is right here, and also the physical plant report. And let me say that I was really impressed, and I'm still going through those reports, at how well everything is documented. And I think that makes it a good tool for the people in the community to have access to that and to learn more information as to how the school works and the projects that are going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. Moving on to board member Lira.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. I want to just share that on Halloween, Miss Arlene Murillo and myself went to go judge the kids at Riverside Elementary. Super fun and super hard decision. All of them did amazing. And they put us on blast. They're like, they're going to judge you in front of everybody. The kids are looking at us like, oh my God. They just put us on the spot. So everybody, all of the kids had amazing costumes, and it was super fun for me to get more involved in the activities with the kids from our area. So I was happy for that, and a little bit saddened for Mr. Sanchez, a person that I actually known throughout my whole life. He's a member of the community, so that's saddening in our area. Aside from that, I have no other report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lira. Moving on to our Secretary Murillo.
Good evening, everybody. I just to piggyback on that, so Mr. Sanchez reached out to us to invite us to judge Halloween, and it was hard because that was the last conversation that we had, an email inviting us to judge and just have a conversation, and then just showing up and not being able to speak to him. It was hard. But yeah, it was amazing. The community, they decorated their trunks, and so it was a nice event. Also, I have been going to a couple of events that I've been invited to, and this last one, I actually just came back from Santa Fe. I went to the Parent University, and it was amazing. I came back super inspired. I met Dr. Cage, the Secretary for Special Education, and she's just an amazing human being. She has so many plans and so many ideas. She gave us this humongous, 32-pound bag full of giveaways, thinking about any kind of disability. And I'm talking about cards with social emotional, reinforcement cards, a white noise machine, a teddy bear. I mean, they really, really, really thought about absolutely everything. And it was to empower parents, and just meeting other parents from different districts. We have the same issues. It's not just Gadsden, it's not APS, it's every single district. We're facing the same challenges. It's just in a different way. So it gave us a peace of mind that we have a lot of work to do. And to mention Ms. Villalobos. So people are watching. So that gives me hope that physically they might not be here, but people are watching, because I also receive calls, and one of them is, how can we help? How can we partner and let's speak to this Ms. Villalobos. And so that's when I reached out to Ms. Villalobos and said, okay, we need to have a conversation, and can we meet with this person and have that have a meeting and see how can they help in the future, because I think we do need to use the resources from the community as well. And so I really want to thank you as well for everything that you do. And yeah, the presentation was just amazing too. And it was very informative, and a lot of people just don't know what it comes with, right? That they see federal programs and they don't know everything that you do behind the scenes, and your team as well. So thank you so much for that. And then I have been meeting and seeing the kids that I mentioned you guys a couple of weeks ago, and the student council from Santa Teresa Bumblebee, and they showed up. And so thank you so much for being here. And I know that they're going around and they want to learn about what is government and what is local control and being on a board, and they want to represent their own school. So I just think it's amazing that they're here. And I know you guys can't see in the camera on TV, but you guys, there's little tiny kids. He looks like a 2-year-old, and then we have older kids, and I think it's like 5th, maybe 4th graders. And I mean, the way they speak is just amazing. And so I will continue to say thank you and, push for using your voice, student voice. And thank you so much to our student representative. Thank you for being here and, and sharing everything that you guys are doing in your schools, because even though we can't be there, we like to hear from you guys. And with that, I conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you. For myself, I'd like to start off by thanking the SMP team. Today, I believe, was the Thanksgiving lunch for all our campuses. So I did get to go to Sunrise Elementary. And so thank you for all your hard work, and thank you to the volunteers. I did see some volunteers from the high school, from Chaparral High School, that volunteered. And I'm pretty sure there's other volunteers through our district. So thank you for that. And I'm hoping I don't see one of our directors here, Tarazona. Hopefully she's at La Cosecha with other teachers in our district. Have fun, but learn lots and to bring back it and use in our classrooms. I also got some phone calls, and it's exciting to hear that some of our parents from Gadsden Independent School District got to attend. I'm not sure the name of the title, but that conference that the parent university attended. So they're very excited to gain new knowledge, to advocate for their kids. Let me see. Congratulations once again to all of our schools and kids that placed at the weather forecast, at the Weatherfest, should I say, I think a weekend ago. And then also regarding sports, I do want to, right now, Ms. Nugis was reminding me that currently Santa Teresa High School volleyball team is competing in state, and right now they're playing against Portales. They've so far won 2 matches. They need 1 more to go over the, so that we can win. So congratulations to them. Best of luck. And then also from my community, I am very proud to say, if you haven't heard already, that the Chaparral High School Lobos, after 12 years, I think, have gone to state, and they competed last Friday against, I think, Portales. And so they won 10-0. And then tomorrow evening, tomorrow morning, they'll be heading out to Bernalillo High School for the quarterfinal. So congratulations to them. Best of luck, guys. We wish you the best. And then what else? Oh, yes. I also, we will miss Mr. Sanchez. I didn't talk too much to the gentleman. I know who he was ever since. I'm no longer an employee of Gadsden, of course, but, I started with Gadsden in 2000. So ever since I began as an educator in my career, he's been a constant here at Gadsden Independent School District. And so he did have the opportunity, was about a semester ago, to serve as principal in Chaparral Elementary. We will miss you dearly. And I showed up like an hour late, but I stayed for the rosary. And Mr. Jesse Sanchez, his brother, made a speech. And so it was a very endearing speech. And one of the things I want to take, if you're hearing Mr. Jesse, is that he mentioned that many times, as educators, we face difficulties, challenges. Something that will always stick with me, that I didn't, that Mr. Sanchez said to his brothers when he would face those challenges. Jesse would tell him, pick your battles. I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not directly quoting. And he would say, probably I should pick my battles, but he said something like, you know what, I can choose to look the other way, but I'm not going to because he did what was right for kids. So I will take that into my heart. And so we will miss you dearly, sir. And that concludes my report for this evening. Moving on to item number 5, which is human resources reports. That is there for public knowledge. No action is required on behalf of the school board. Okay, moving on to item 7. Do I hear a motion? Number 6, sorry.
I make a motion that we accept the agenda, because there's no modifications, right?
No. So
Yeah.
Ms. Murillo has made a motion to accept the agenda as is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 7, I would like to make a motion that we accept the regular school board minutes for October 24, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to consent agenda. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this evening's consent agenda? No? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, Ms. Murillo made a motion to accept the consent agenda as is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to open forum. Ms. Delgado, do we have any speakers who would like to address the board this evening?
Madam President, we do have open forum.
So we do have 2 individuals that would like to address the board this evening. Just a reminder that the board discourages personal attacks upon staff personnel or any other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board. Any person making public comments shall be solely responsible for the content of his or her comments. The board neither adopts nor assumes responsibility for any comments made by individuals during public comment. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that are false and damaging to a person's reputation may subject the presenter to civil action for defamation. The board prohibits personal threats and the use of obscenity. Such speech is not protected and will not be permitted. The board further prohibits disruptive conduct. Disruptive conduct will not be tolerated. Any violations may result in the removal from the premises. And then each speaker does have 5 minutes. But as a school board president, I do have the right to extend that time if I choose to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call our first speaker for this evening. It's Mr. Paul Duval. Good evening, sir.
Thank you. I'm the parent of a student at Alta Vista, and there are 2 items that I would like to bring to the board's attention. The first concerns 2 instances of false accusations that have been placed against the student. I don't want to litigate that situation here. That's being dealt within the district and within the state. But I do want to draw attention to how the evidence was collected. Sorry, can you hear me?
And if you'd like, sir, you can pick up the mic off the
Okay,
stand if you'd like, or you could get closer.
Is this better? Okay. So the means by which the evidence was collected was a software, AI detection software, downloaded onto the teacher's personal device. Excuse me. Now, it's a certainty that the teacher does not have expertise or training in statistical analysis or, in the reliability of the software. But there are experts in this district who train all of the employees within the district on AI usage, and they've communicated very clearly that these software packages are not reliable. The teachers should not be using them, and certainly should not be using them for enforcement. And they've further advised that we should be waiting for developments and insight from the state on that matter. Now, the state has actually weighed in. They have, including in these individual cases, and they have communicated to the superintendent and his staff. These communications are available. I think it's the Inspection Public Records Act, IPRA, and they've also made abundantly clear, they've reiterated that this software, these devices are not reliable. They should not be used by the teachers, and certainly not for enforcement. And yet, despite that, the policy, there is no policy in the district, has been to allow the teacher to go their own way and to enforce this at the district or at the school. So I'm requesting of the board is to put a moratorium on this, to issue a directive to state that we can't allow teachers to just go rogue using stuff that they're pulling off the internet and don't know how to use, and to await for formal direction that's coming from the state. And I believe that is coming. They had a meeting in Las Cruces on Saturday, and so there is movement going forth, but they're very concerned. There have been hundreds of false positives across this state, across this country. The second item, unfortunately, is a little more dire, and that is that these false accusations of plagiarism have been tied to a very deep and personal animosity that this teacher has displayed towards this student. It started around mid-September and continues to now. It has gotten to the stage where my student is now seeking counseling at the school. So that issue is being addressed at the state level and also at the district level. There is some communication between the two. This teacher has a multitude of other issues that I will not address here, but suffice to say that how this is the priorities of student advocacy versus what the district is doing in terms of what appears to be just circling the wagons because we have a tenured teacher. It's very disappointing. It says what the mandate is supposed to be and what we're supposed to do at the schools and in the district, but it's not being adhered to here. And I'm familiar with teachers that are tough. I know personally a teacher who is very tough, but it's also important for a teacher to be exceedingly fair, and she is, and most importantly, that the teacher care for the students. And I know that that is intuitively obvious because the students adore her. And that happens because she's got the same, it's cut from the same cloth as my daughter is. And my daughter, in her 7 years before this, was also similarly adored by her teachers, except for one. I'm very disappointed that I need to be here in front of this board today. I have nothing further to add. I do thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Duval. And Mr. Dempsey will be reaching out to you or a designated leadership and team member. And then we will make sure that he follows through with contacting you, sir. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Jasmine Garcia. You may step up to the podium.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jasmine Garcia, and I am the Student Council Coordinator here at Bumblebee Learning Center, which is, we have an after-school program. We are a 5-star learning center, and I'm thrilled to introduce you guys to our dedicated group of Student Council members who have committed themselves to representing and advocating for their fellow students in the Gadsden Independent School District. Our student council is a diverse team of of leaders who are passionate about their positive impact within our community. They are here to learn, they are here to grow, and they are here to practice conscious discipline, which will help them become effective leaders and role models. Each member brings unique strengths and perspectives, and together we aim to create an inclusive and supportive environment for all students. These students are eager to be the voice for their fellow community members, ensuring everyone's concerns and ideas are heard. I would like to introduce you guys to our student council members. We have Mia Plasencia, who is our president. Mia Plasencia is the president of Student Council, Bumblebee Learning Center, and her role is to lead our team in representing students' voices, organizing events, and promoting a positive environment in which she does. And we also have our Vice President, Emma Mendoza. Vilma Mendoza is our Vice President of the Student Council at Bumblebee Learning Center, and her role is to support the President in leading our council, help organize events, and ensure the students' concerns are addressed. They are followed by the Secretary, which is Naomi Bustiaga. Naomi's role is to involve keeping accurate records of our meetings, managing communications, and ensuring that all the council activities are well organized. And then we also have our secretary, which is going to be not here today, but we have her representing us, which is Julie Fayan. I'm sorry, a treasurer. And so Ms. Julie's role is to manage the council's funds, keep track of our budget, and ensure that we use our resources wisely for our benefits of all our students. And last but not least, on our student council board, we have our fundraising officers, which they are super excited to be all part of our team. We have Alex and Jael Diaz, and their role is to involve planning and organizing fundraisers, events to support our center's activities. And we would like to thank all of you guys for hearing us out and for letting us be here to be the voices for our fellow students. So thank you.
Thank you. So in a couple of years, we hope to see you guys sitting here.
Yes.
Take our place, our seats. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next item on the agenda is our action items. We have 3 this evening. Our first one is the redistricting project, consideration and possible approval of new district. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this is an item we've been working on for quite a while. There's a review there of the timeline. We started back in July 27th with a work session. August 8th, we discussed this at a regular board meeting. September 5th, regular board meeting, again, discussion. 5 community meetings, all in each of your representative districts. October 24th, and then November 14th is, obviously today. Through that process, we were initially given 5 proposals. Also to mention, we had a board member appointed during the time, so we had to pause a little bit, so that's what probably drug this out a little bit longer than we needed. And we whittled that down to 3 options. We've had that posted on our district website, and I think we're at a point where we could possibly take action if the board is willing to.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Mr. Morales?
At the last meeting, we voted to table it so that Ms. Rodriguez could vote, but she's not here again, and I think that we should table this until she's here so everyone can vote.
Any other questions, comments?
I have a question. By any chance, did she mention you, I don't know, can we move forward or should we? Because I know last time we did not even address it, but knowing that she's not here today, and did she?
So she did reach out to me, and I want to say that it was a very busy day, and I contacted her like a couple of minutes before coming in, so I'm not sure what happened. I don't know, and I don't feel like I'm at liberty to say that.
Madam President, board members, she did contact me and shared that she just had a family situation, that she had planned to be here, and then something had come up family-wise that she could not attend.
Okay. So, no, with that, I don't know how you feel tabling it again or moving on, if she was okay with that.
So I guess I'm going to put my, go ahead, Mr. Morales.
I think that we should at least table it one more time, to give her the opportunity to have this discussion and make sure that she has a vote.
Okay. No, I was going to say I would agree to do that. I just, you haven't made a formal motion yet, so I just wanted to make sure, have a question regarding the matter. Because I had some constituents reach out, and I just wanted to make sure, and then correct me if I make any mistakes there. Somebody had reached out saying, will my children then be required, because they obviously studied the maps, and said, will my children, Chaparral, have to then go over the mountain like we used to do before? So I did respond to the individual, and I said, absolutely not. This is not a redistricting of attendance zones. This is a redistricting for the areas that the board members that the five of us represent at the current time. So,
Madam President, board members, that's a very important distinction. I appreciate you bringing that up. There does sometimes create some confusion that it'll impact attendance zones. This will not change attendance zones for schools.
okay. And then another question was, obviously, this is a result of the census that occurs every 10 years. However, just need clarification. Does this redistricting have to wait every 10 years, or can it happen sooner based on, because we know that there's areas of growth like in Chaparral, there's other areas growing. How would you respond to that?
Madam President, board members, it typically does follow that 10-year cycle of the census. If there's significant growth in the district, the board always has within their authority to look at that and do it sooner if they feel necessary.
Okay. And then just the last question that I was asked is that, and my answer was like, yes, it was taken into consideration the physical addresses of all of us so that we fall within those proposed boundaries, areas, or districts, correct?
Madam President, board members, exactly. We absolutely took into consideration, which is why we paused for a minute to get a full board, and then each of your addresses was to ensure that you were included in the current district you represent.
Okay, awesome. Those were all my questions for this evening. So with that being said, I would make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and table this item so that we can go ahead and give our fellow colleague an opportunity at the next board meeting to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to action item 10B, legislative priorities, Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, we've talked a little bit about our legislative priorities. We had some conversations during multiple meetings. Mr. Snowdy, will you click on that draft? I believe each of you received a copy of a draft. That's a little bit hard to see. I apologize. Oh, there you go. Mr. Snowdy will help us out there. Gave each of you a draft, just a little summary, salary components specific to special education teachers across the district and bilingual. Both of those pieces we feel like were important, or that's what I gathered from the conversation. Increased funding for SPED programs. We obviously have some very special ones to us, but the idea being how do we encourage something at a state level that could benefit all schools, right? And that's important. And then increased funding for fine arts programs. That definitely became part of that. And then the final one that I had was consider establishing term limits for board members.
With that being said, are there any others that we have left that you all might want to know? Are we good? And Mr. Dempsey, if I may ask, will these priorities, like obviously you'll present them at the primer, and then do we have a flyer that we're working on that includes enrollment, how many schools, and then that they're listed?
Madam President, board member, so typically at that legislative primer, we do kind of give a present of the demographics of Gadsden, and I think that's real important for them to understand and give them a little bit of information on what we're working on. And we try to give them, unfortunately, and I have to be, I could brag about Gadsden all day, so I have to be very specific about what I try to get them to understand, and I try to make it to where it's something that can benefit their decision as we move into that legislative session. One thing we might consider, I don't know if the board wants to consider this, I don't know if one of you wants to do some of those presentations. There's no reason why a board, which I think might be a stronger, to share with those legislators some things that you might be, feel very important and have a good background to be able to articulate. I'm not saying you have to. I'm comfortable doing it, but I just wonder if the impact, that would be something new. This would be a new twist, and I don't know if that's something, we don't have to decide that tonight, but maybe if you're interested in one of those particular items, you reach out to me and we'll start working on how we want to present that.
Go ahead.
So I was thinking, thank you for that, because I was not thinking about us, but I was even thinking, bring the experts, Ms. Rodriguez and Beach, Mr. Beach. I'm like, I'm sorry, I lost it. But I like the idea because it's true. They want, when we talk to our legislators, we talk to them, right? And so I think it will, and if something that we're asking for, right, and something that we're passionate about. But I would like to add to that, maybe even bring them, because in case they ask follow-up questions that we don't know about, that maybe they can address it. Because it's always right. So for me, what I saw today at the conference and what I've seen, and pretty often is the board and the superintendent. Is very rare when we bring them right to legislature. So I think it will be nice, not to put them on the spot, but I think it will be nice to show that collaboration.
I do like that idea, Ms. Murillo, and thank you, Mr. Dempsey, for that idea. So I agree. I wouldn't mind speaking un poquito, and then do something in collaboration with Rodriguez, and then if it's even possible, like I'm gonna even take it further, is maybe having an actual special education teacher, or a student, depending what it is that, obviously that sticks with what our priorities. Not that, they can speak if they choose to, or they could be there so that afterwards as we're mingling, because nothing beats like hearing from the actual person that's affected, or how they're going to be effective in a positive way if these changes were to occur. So most definitely. So if any of you want to talk regarding any of the matters that any of our legislative priorities, go ahead and please reach out to Mr. Dempsey. But I'm saying that I would like to. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay.
Madam President, this is an action item, so what I'm asking for action is to approve the
Yes.
the list.
Yes.
You don't have to commit to anything
Yeah.
in terms of presenting, but I need to make sure this is an approved list, and then we can start working on that.
Okay. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve our legislative priorities as stated there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our final action item for this evening is whistleblower policy. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this is an item that we've kind of been looking at over the course of a couple meetings. It is listed there, our current policy. We don't necessarily have, and I'm not aware of any changes, but we did get a chance to review it. We had legal counsel review it. Each of you got to kind of give us some ideas. I will share with you that through this discussion, our HR department has every campus has a poster in every teacher's lounge that has several pieces of information, one of which includes the whistleblower policy, the current whistleblower policy. So we made sure that every campus has that posted so that those rights, and it includes other pieces such as like New Mexico minimum wage, Employment Act, discrimination protections, paid sick leave, job health and safety, workers' compensation, and notice of human trafficking. So those are all included in a pretty large poster, but it's all verified to be posted in teachers' lounges. So that was, I think, a really easy suggestion that was made in the group, and that has occurred.
Are there any questions, comments? Mr. Morales?
I do. In this context, how is campus defined?
So the way I would define it is for campuses, it's going to be each of our school campuses. Like for example, Gadsden High School, they have a teacher's lounge. That's a common meeting place, if you will. That's where that's posted.
Okay. So my next question is, I think that, we should make a motion to approve this even though it's already been done. But I would make a motion to extend that to other facilities that we have that don't have kids in them. We have the different facilities that, they need to be aware. And they need to know that this school board is there for them as well. And the administration is there for them.
Madam President, and I want to make sure I stay on the same page with that. You're probably suggesting like campuses like Student Nutrition Department, which has its own campus. Students aren't necessarily there, but there is common meeting places. We want to make sure those are posted there. Physical Plant, which physical plant is really located around Gadsden Middle School, which today doesn't have students at because of construction, but we want to make sure those are in those common meeting places, correct?
Yes.
That seems
Yeah,
okay.
the end goal is that every employee that works for the district is aware and has access to that information.
Absolutely.
Any further questions, comments, or concerns? No? Would you like to make a motion, sir?
Yes, I would. I'd like to make a motion to accept item 10C.
Okay. Mr. Morales made motion to accept item 10C. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our discussion items for this evening. The first one is 11A, Gadsden Independent School District graduation rates. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Worgemuth, I'm going to try to present this, but if I get off, he's there as my safety net to save me. Just a little bit of background on graduation rates, just so everybody's clear. New Mexico Public Education calculates graduation rates on cohorts. So each cohort, when you start as a freshman, that's a cohort. And they track them through. They're tracked through exit codes. And that can range from an exit code of a graduate, that's good, all the way to exited and left the state, exited and moved to another school in New Mexico, exited and left the country, those type of codes that are utilized to help determine how they're calculated in that process. And then, as a simple, it's GISD graduates divided by the potential graduates. So if a student drops out, that's going to be included in that calculation, right? That's how you determine whether, the graduation rate then would be reduced, right? Mr. W., did I totally butcher anything, or is there anything you'd correct me on?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, excellent job.
Okay, terrific. I can still be a high school principal, I have to. Next slide, please. This is going to give you an insight. So we asked for several years of this, and so what you'll see is the second row is our statewide results. So from 2018, you had a 73.9% statewide, and then 19, 75, 20, 76.9, 21, 76.8, 22, 76, and then 23, the most recent, 76.7. Keep in mind, graduation rates always lag 1 year behind because obviously our current cohort hasn't graduated yet. They have to do the calculation, so they're always 1 year behind. Gadsden ISD, our district, go back to 2018, 81.8, 2019, 84, 2020, 82.2, 2021, 83.3, 2022, 87, and our most recent, which is the highest in district history, 87.8, which I'm a math person, so I like to round to 88 because it sounds really good. We're really, really pushing hard. Our goal is to get to 90. That would be a terrific accomplishment. It takes a lot of hard work on every part to do that. Then below that, you will see that each individual school and those numbers associated with those. And so you see where like Alta Vista, typically, now you got to remember, small campus, right? 200 students. So when you think about a cohort, you're probably around 40 or 50 in that cohort. So 1 or 2 students are going to make a big impact if 1 or 2 don't graduate. So you see how that 92 and 100 really seems like a big range, not for a small school. Now, when you get to like Chaparral High, Gadsden High, and Santa Teresa, you'll see that those are a little bit, you won't see such a range because of their stable population and then the numbers. You're looking at about probably 300 to 400 in each of those classes. And then just for clarity on Desert Pride Academy was a program for years, and we, in 2022, I think that'd be 21, right? In 21, we made the decision to make it a school. And then next cohort became 22. And so that gives you an idea of how Desert Pride, and I'll just remind everybody, Desert Pride is our alternative program. And I'll connect a little bit of this to something that was presented earlier about school ranking and proficiency rates. We are likely the only alternative school in the state of New Mexico to be a traditional ranking. Every other will be in CSI, MRI, Yeah, it's tremendous work that got there. So, questions, I'll try to answer them. It takes sometimes a little bit of time to process where that, we're always looking to trend upward and increase graduation rates. Now, I think there's a reasonable conversation that says, I think it's a very important conversation. There's three things that I try to use to measure whether we're doing a good job. Graduation rates, proficiency rates, and are we reducing chronic absenteeism? Over the next couple meetings, you will be able to see each of those measures and be able to see for yourself that yes, we are increasing graduation rates, yes, we are increasing proficiency rates, and yes, we are reducing chronic absenteeism.
Thank you.
I-
Oh, sorry about that, sir. Go ahead.
If you don't mind. So are the graduation rates submitted by the district to the state?
Madam President, Board member, yes, sir.
Okay. And so is it, say you had 100 students in the school, and let's say 90 of them graduated, but before then, if some of those kids were dropped and that number of students decreases from 100 to, let's say, 90, then your graduation rate would be 100%. No?
Madam President, Board member, terrific. I'm really glad you get that. And so, Mr. W., if I say this wrong, maybe you jump in there. But it starts with your freshman year. So we're cohorting those kids. So if you start with 100 and 10 leave, those 10 may or may not count against you, right? And what I mean by that is if they go to another school and still graduate, it's okay, right? It's not going to hurt you. They're going to be counted in some of our snapshots. Now, if they drop out and do not have a graduation code somewhere else, that will become a dropout. So you don't get to just reset your number, if you will. Mr. Morgan, with you, want to take a stab to make sure we understand?
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, you're exactly correct in what you're describing. I think one clarifying point for Mr. Morales, we as a district don't provide the rate to the state. We provide the data and sets of data and outcome codes for each kid, and the state calculates that on a standard manner throughout the state based on data we report. So we give them the data, the outcome codes, what Mr. Dempsey is describing, where they went, and then the state has their formula based on those codes and who went where, and they come back with us with a rate. So we can have an idea to what we think it may be, but we give them the raw data and they provide us a rate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 11. Actually, where am I? 11B, Gadsden Independent School District student attendance, chronic absenteeism. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, Board members, this came up last meeting, and what I want you to first be aware is that we have a state attendance plan that is required by the state of New Mexico. It is required in December to present that to you. So we'll have an entire team. Ms. Villalobos, you want to join us because I don't want to misspeak here. This is part of her team, and Ms. Complito will join us, who's an expert in this. But I want you to sort of understand that you'll get a full-blown presentation on this, and it is required to do so in December. So, Ms. Villalobos?
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board. What we're going to have for you today here, our lady, Ms. Elisa Cumplido, is in charge of the attendance in the district. She's the coordinator that is helping us doing this. What is happening with, what we need to understand is there's so many requirements for attendance that we have to do. Like today, we're going to have we say this way, half of the presentation. December, we're coming back with the updated numbers for this year because there are requirements that need to be presented to the board according to the Attendance for Success Act. And we are following the law, and what we kind of have today is see if you can start understanding what chronic absenteeism is, what we are required as a district, because we have to submit an attendance district plan, but every single school has an individual plan that is reviewed on a monthly basis. Those attendance plans by the schools, you can see them on the schools' websites. And we are constantly, Ms. Elisa Cumplido and her team are constantly working with the principals on those attendance plans. And this is a very important information just for us to understand it. As Ms. Cumplido is going to give you a presentation so we can understand what is the difference and understand that truancy doesn't exist anymore in the state of New Mexico. It's the attendance for success. And that's a different kind of like a different game what we have right now.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, good evening. So I'm going to begin with the difference between truancy and chronic absenteeism. And so when we were looking at truancy in the past, we were focused on unexcused absences. With the chronic absenteeism, we're really looking at both excused, unexcused, and suspensions. They all count as an absence. So right here, we may have a student that has had 10 excused absences within a span of about a month. There you would have it equal to chronic absenteeism. You could have a student that just has unexcused absences and can also lead to chronic absenteeism. And then you can have a student that has multiple suspensions. It may lead to chronic absenteeism. But something for us to keep in mind is that we may have students that call in where they have excused absences, and sometimes maybe the parents didn't call in and they have unexcused absences. And so they all lead to that chronic absenteeism. And then on the bottom, we have how we calculate the chronic absenteeism rate. So we have the total days absent divided by the total number of days currently enrolled. And that's what gives us a chronic absenteeism rate. So with the Attendance for Success Act, we are looking at the different tiers. It really focuses on that prevention piece, really focusing on having that whole school prevention and that individualized prevention. The Attendance for Success team for the district focuses on the early intervention and the intensive intervention. So we do have our attendance advocates that have attendance intervention meetings, and those are for the early intervention and also for the intensive intervention. So those are our students that are in tier 3 and 4. And then, Mr. Snowdy, if you could please click on the plan. So this is an action plan that is a requirement from the state for us to really demonstrate what we will be implementing to improve attendance. So a couple of things that we've been implementing this year is we've been promoting the Be Here in New Mexico campaign. We have had some of the attendance advocates that have been participating in parades and sometimes they've been giving presentations across the district, whether it is for teachers or sometimes for parents, depending on what the need is for that campus. Then we have the Attendance for Success team, and that is comprised of 2 attendance support individuals that are making phone calls. And then we recently just hired someone that's going to be joining the team. And then we have our attendance advocates as well. And so that's the Attendance for Success team. We provide support across the district. Our attendance advocates are assigned to campuses based on equity. And when we're looking at equity, we're looking at the poverty index that's provided to us. And then we have, of course, our tier 2, and also our attendance advocates are supporting. We have our counselors. It depends on the plan that the administrators and their attendance lead team have. So some of them will vary. In some cases, we have the counselors providing support and prevention or implementing prevention strategies for tier 2. It's just going to depend, but across the district, it's based on what the need is, and also we're really making sure that it's aligned to the multi-layered systems of support. So we do have the social workers that are also providing support, also meeting the needs of our students and families. We have the mental health therapist as well. And so it's just a district team effort and understanding that we're all stakeholders. And we do have a plan for the campus, but knowing that everyone at campus, whether we're a teacher, the crucial role of a teacher, a clerk, also our custodians, everybody on campus, we are working towards improving attendance at every campus. And so I touched on the mental health therapist as well. They're the ones that, so we have our social workers that at times when the attendance advocates go ahead and receive an electronic attendance advocate referral, they'll really look for that individual that they need to recommend for whatever intervention is needed. So in some cases, it may go straight to a social worker. A social worker may conduct a home visit, or they may be, they need to be seen by a counselor. Maybe they need to be seen by a mental health therapist, depending on what the need is and really what the root cause is. And then, of course, with the Tier 4, that one is really where the attendance lead team is really focusing on providing that intensive support. And so we've been receiving guidance from the New Mexico PED. We do have someone new that is taking care of attendance, Miss Angela Crespin. And so she's provided guidance on, previously we used to send the students straight to JPO. Of course, that's not our goal. Our goal is really to build relationships. And so before we do that, they do want us to submit a family and needs of services referral and then submit to JPO. Currently, we have 0 students that we've submitted to JPO. And so here we have a couple of things. It was passed, the Attendance for Success Act was passed in 2019. And then, of course, in 2020, we had the pandemic, and we had a quarantine attendance code. And then in 2021, we continued with that quarantine attendance code. And then in 2022, we still continued with the quarantine attendance code. By 2023, it was beginning to be phased out. So that really did impact the chronic absenteeism across the district. Because with that code, we were following the CDC guidelines. And in some cases, we had students that had to quarantine for 10 days or 20 days. So as long as they notified us and let us know that they were experiencing something related to COVID, then we would input the code, the quarantine attendance code. And so they didn't count as absences. They did have access to the work online. And so right here, you'll see the chronic absence rate, and where we have the 2018 to 2019, that rate was a 19.04%, and that was before the Attendance for Success Act. So something for us to keep in mind is that before the Attendance for Success Act, we were looking at truancy, and we're no longer looking at that, and it's no longer punitive as well. And so then
No longer what?
punitive. And so as we continue to look at the rates, some of them, of course, we were still using that quarantine code, but if you notice on school year 22-2023, that was the year that we completely did away with the quarantine code. So we were at a chronic rate of 37.01%, and we ended the year at a 32.25%. And then right next to it, you'll see what our target is for this school year, 29.67. The next slide, Mr. Snowden. And so this is what we just went over the end of year 22-23, 37.01. Our target for last school year was 34%. And then, Mr. Snowden, if you could go to the next slide. And we just recently received our official chronic rate in October. And so our official chronic rate for last school year was at 32.25%. And so a couple of things that we're working on, our path forward is we're really focusing on that prevention piece, prevention before intervention. We were seeing that in the past, we were really focusing on intervening and really providing lots of intervention. So we're really striving to really focus on that prevention piece. We're continuing to monitor data, and then, of course, providing support on the attendance improvement plans across the district, and then attendance lead team. So the attendance lead team is the one that works with the administrator. The administrator is the one that is leading that attendance lead team, and they have teachers, they have counselors, they have different individuals in their campus that are part of their attendance lead team, and really their role is for them to guide their campus on how to implement their attendance intervention plan. Something new that we're working on, and we're still at the very beginning phases, is really for those attendance intervention meetings to incorporate restorative circles. So we're still going to be providing more training for the team, and that's still a work in progress. We did receive training from our mental health therapist, Mr. Conrad Bobadilla, and so we're still working with him. We also have other mental health therapists that are going to be supporting us with that as well. But mainly, really, our focus is on building relationships. And then we've also branched out into professional development. We've participated in different professional development. For example, we just recently came back from the Fall Attendance Conference. And so some of the team members were able to attend. We did have 2 administrators that participated as well, and this was paid through the attendance grant. So with that funding from the attendance grant, they really want to focus on really not really purchasing incentives for the students, but really that intrinsic motivation, and also for the individuals across the district, for them to participate in professional development to improve attendance. And then something else that we're working on is celebrating improved attendance. Sometimes we are seeing that we just want to focus on celebrating those students that have perfect attendance, but we're moving towards also incorporating to celebrate the improved attendance. And then as a team for the Attendance for Success Act, we do have one of our team members, Mr. Adrian Ortegon, and he's the one that's taking care of our social media.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Morales?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you stated that currently you have no JPO referrals? Okay, current means what?
As of the month of October, we just closed all of our data closed for October, so we have 0.
0. So did you have some in September?
No, we have 0 from the beginning of the school year up until now.
And opposed to last year?
As opposed to last year, we did have, I don't have that information right in front of me right now, but we did have students that were sent to JPO.
Based on what you do know of last year, was the JPO effective?
No, sir.
Let me clarify something here. With the Attendance for Success Act, GPO has no power anymore. They can do nothing. They cannot send the parents to court. They have no power anymore. So the juvenile probation officers When it was a truancy, they used to have all this power and send the kids and do that. So now all they can do is do a home visit. Parents can do whatever because they have no power on anything. The Attendance for Success Act took all the power away from GPO.
Okay.
So there's much. that
No,
they-
I completely understand. And I'm very aware of what the JPO can do and what they
So
can't do.
that's, because that's the challenge that we have with the bill.
Yeah, I'm very aware. Let's see, I had another question. You're going to give a more thorough presentation?
Yeah, we're going to come back in December so that
Okay.
you can see
So-
the actual numbers for this year.
So can we have access to this presentation now? Okay, because I don't think I saw it on the website when I was going through the meeting stuff. But yeah, so I would think that the next time, or in December, that all of this will be fleshed out. I mean, because there's a lot of.
It's a lot
bullet
of
points.
information.
Okay. All right. Oh, I know what that question was. The other question was, at what point does a school district do a home visit?
The home visits, you want to answer to the home? The home visits is based on every single case is different.
Okay, but
Every
there-
individual case is different. So the attendance network is going to the home visits. First, we try the phone. We have to do the 357 and the interact letters. I mean, there's a whole procedure on the interventions. There's a whole steps that we need to follow. And when those things are not working, that's when.
Okay, so at the point when all those procedures need to be followed, then it's a home visit?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Ms. Murillo?
I just have one question. I remember last year we had a presentation from, I think it was the Department of Health. There was a group, I forgot her name, but she was talking about everything in her power to like avoid the students to go to JPO, and so that they were working with us. And are we still partnering with them? Is that something? I forgot their name. I don't know if you can remind me.
Yeah. And actually, let me tell you something that is very interesting, and it's like something that we're very happy is that this is the second year that we received the attendance grant from the state. So this is something new in the state of New Mexico. And I can tell you before this year and last year is when we see that they are trying to help us. This year we see them like really, they put a team on New Mexico PET to really target all this. That was not happening before. The attendance plans were kind of like a requirement, and that's it. It's like, okay, you did it, you need to submit by October 2nd. Okay, check mark. Nothing was happening, and this is changing completely with the state. So Ms. Cumplido is completely in constant communication with the lady who is in charge of the attendance at the New Mexico PET. I think you talk to her like every week at least. Like really, they're reviewing every school plan and they working as a team with every principal. They improving the plan and doing all those things. So they're trying to change that approach because the idea of this plan is to really do a positive intervention. It's not about punishing the kids. And yes, we have some partners like the Department of Health and things like that, but when it comes to really working with our kids, it's our team. It's like, I mean, community members can help us, but it's like kind of limited. It's really is this amazing team, and Ms. Cumplido, I can tell you, is doing an amazing job thinking outside of the box, taking the leadership, because she's really taking an amazing leadership and getting with different ideas how we can target it in a positive way and really create a positive environment around this. Because it's about prevention, not intervention, and that's what we're working very, very, very hard to do.
But are we still working with them? Because I know, aren't they the same people that were doing like the BAPE education?
Yeah, they come. Actually, we're working with them more on other things like on the vaping and we're working very closely right now with the suicide prevention thing and all those trainings. That's what we're doing with the Department of Health a lot. And Ms. Alma Forte is the one working with them very closely, but in all those things. So Alma works with them on all this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
I do have one request that in the next presentation, that not only do you provide percentages, but student numbers. I think it's important to know that those individuals who need that extra help, that they're not forgotten. Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions here. So when you meant non-punitive, it's because the JPO is not involved anymore, correct?
is involved when we have to send the packet. For example, when we have a packet ready that you have all the documentation, all the interventions have been done, taking place, the home visits, the attendance meeting, the student plan, the student improvement plan. There's a lot of interventions. Then you have a packet. The way it works, Ms. Elisa goes with Mr. Dempsey because he needs to sign the packet. And once he approves it, then goes to GPO. So that's what it is. But the attendance for success, if you have the time to read it, is what it is. It's about prevention. The state is putting the responsibility on the districts, and they putting it on us. How are we going to do it to make the kids feel welcome, not to miss school, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what if you read the plan, I mean, the bill is what it is.
So it's still, something still goes to the JPO though,
Yes.
except they don't have the power to.
Yeah, so why they go to
hold
GPO
anybody
is
accountable.
because they are on tier 4 and everything has been done, everything, and nothing has worked.
And the reason probably they can't do anything because the state has decided that we're going to do, which is fine. I mean, I get it, do positive reinforcement versus negative. But, you know,
Exactly, because-
that's where, I mean, I get it, but there still has to be consequences in my personal
Yeah,
opinion.
but that's something that is not up to us. It's up to the legislation.
Yeah, and that's what,
These legislators are the ones that need to take improvements on this bill.
okay. And,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm glad that you brought that up, that is legislation. Just this past week, the district attorney from Bernalillo County presented to the legislator regarding the consequences imposed on juvenile crime. And what he's not proposing that you just arrest all these kids. He's proposing the threat of harsher punishments. And so I understand what's going on with the JPO. We work with them, you know, just about every day with kids that are, you know, and they're truant and they have no teeth and they cannot do anything. And so but the JPOs do care and they do work with those kids, and we all try to help them and find their way. And we've had some success with some kids and zero success with other kids. But I think that we may want to consider that we do add this to our legislative priorities, that, I don't know, it'll pass maybe this year, but next year, but that we ask them to give the JPO and CYFD a little more teeth when dealing with juvenile crime and student crime, and not necessarily to punish the kids, but to use that as a deterrent, you know, to give them a little bit more say-so, you know, and, you know, we work with these JPOs, you know, every day. And it's kind of sad because, you know, we can't get across to them, then they get lost. And then you see them walking down the street and, you know, it's pretty sad, but I think there's something we can do. Thank you.
My other, okay, so I've been asked this and I'm just curious how you would respond, parents. So I'm looking at the table where it says excused absence equals chronic absenteeism. Unexcused absence equals chronic. I know that. So I've been asked, then what's the point of calling the office and, you know, saying, my son did not go because he went to the doctor. I have a doctor's excuse. And then, you know, I get it. So how would you respond to parents like, because they'll ask me, well, what's the point of me saying, because it's still going to be counted against us. So in our district, is knowing that this was excused because they went to the doctor, does that make a difference in deciding anything? How would you answer that question?
We still need to follow the plan.
Yes, we do receive that on a daily basis. And so we do have to follow the guidelines for the Attendance for Success Act. So we just continue to keep that constant communication. And also if we need to inform a nurse or somebody else, maybe they're in need of resources. But that is correct. Whether they call in for excused or unexcused, they do have the same.
So I mean, I as a parent would do it out of courtesy. But so then realistically, if I chose not to, we're not going to get in trouble because it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter.
Madam President, board members, the way I would respond to a parent in that is, if you have CYFD and JPO reviewing a packet, and there includes multiple doctor's notes, that says something. If there's none, that says something.
So
Right.
then so that's, thank you for your response.
Yes.
Because I've been asked and I'm like, oh, let me see what.
documented, and it's like all the doctors and yeah.
Okay.
It's hard for some parents to understand, why are we calling? Why are you calling me? I called the school and told them that my kid was sick, or my kid had surgery, and it's like, why are you calling me? We still need to do the job.
Madam President, I will share with you, there is very serious conversation about this happening at the state level. LESC is working on a study with it. I've heard conversations about loss of credit, which will impact our graduation rates. So if students, no matter what their grades are, if they went there, I'm not saying they will, if they went there, you could be passing your classes. And if you fall into certain categories of chronic absenteeism, you lost credit. That's where it gets serious, right? And I'm not sure I want to go there, but I am sure we need to do better. So just know those conversations are occurring right now at our state level, and I think very likely during this legislative session, there will be changes to the Student Success Act.
So I was actually going to ask that. So currently, if my son is like ridiculously absent, he won't get credit, or is that not the case?
No,
right
Madam
now?
President, that really is not the case. Now, I'm going to tell you as a school leader, I have questions. If a student has a lot of absences added up, how are they passing the class? Right? And I think that's a legitimate question. Now, it could be that they're sick and they've had a long-term illness, and we have the teacher working really hard with the parent to keep them afloat and keep it going. That might be the case. It may not be the case. And so every situation presents its own challenges. But I will emphasize the state is looking at this. This is seems to be a very high priority. I also want to add, and I hope that answers your question. I want to add two things that I think are important. One, right now in the numbers you're seeing, they've included pre-K students. Pre-K is not mandatory. And that bothers me that that's included in that number. Now, does it probably lean towards saying, well, we want to encourage good habits at a young age? Yeah, that does. That's right. But I'm not sure that reflects exactly what we're working on. And then I want to recognize that these two ladies, Ms. Villalobos and Ms. Cumplido, one of the things we did, and I mentioned this, I think, at a previous meeting, we recognize students with a certain level of attendance. It may be perfect attendance or near perfect attendance. This last time at Santa Teresa Elementary, we recognized the parents. And we couldn't, we did a picture with the students and the parents. We couldn't move very quickly because the parents really wanted the picture with their child and their little award. And so it was really, I really appreciate these ladies, again, thinking out of the box. How do you encourage? And obviously at the elementary level, we got to get parents excited about it. And I thought that was a really creative idea and very effective from what I saw. It slowed down our presentation, but well worth it because those parents were so proud.
And I was going to piggyback on that. I was going to say also on a positive note is kudos to you all ladies for acknowledging also students that are making improvements. Just like I've said in the past, it's not just about honoring and acknowledging our A students that are always going to be up here. It's about also acknowledging those that are making strides, because even those growth is growth. And that's what might set off a student. Well, you know what, they're recognizing, I'm getting recognized and I'm going to move forward, and then we get yes. So thank you for doing that. I guess my last question comment would be, while right now there's no teeth, right, to holding people accountable, but I'm going to say I'm sure you guys are educating, but are we educating our students, our parents, that while and those who are hearing right now, who would say, well, there's no teeth, so they're going to do nothing to me. Well, if that's your attitude, that's a very bad attitude, because there are still consequences, even though, there's the JPO is not going to be knocking on your door and holding you with punitive action against you. But, are we educating our parents and students that, what, it is going to affect you, because if you're not present, you're not going to be mastering what is the performance standards, I think is what you call them. I forgot. I'm blank. In order to be able to move forward. And so every year you get behind, you're going to get behind. And then when you get to high school, what are you going to do? So even though there's no punitive action taken, there's still consequences. And I would hope that we are educating our parents, because also, we need to educate parents that if your son or daughter, has a legitimate learning disability, and they're constantly absent, well, guess what, folks? You're not going to be, when they go through the student assistance team, they're not going to be able to even get tested or considered for testing for initial evaluation, because there's a lack of opportunity. So you're hurting your child. And, in the end, as adults, we are the ones responsible for our kids to send to the school. And that's what's sad, is that many times it's not our kids' fault, it's us as parents. So, I would hope that we are educating our parents on that.
Yeah, so when it comes to the parents, we wish we can reach all those parents that are not bringing the kids to school. Those are the parents that we want them to be in our community centers and on the coffee with the principal. Unfortunately, those are not the ones that attend, because at the community centers, we're planning on having attendance advocates, going there, giving a class to the parents that are attending the English classes, the GED classes, and explaining the whole presentation. But something to highlight, the amazing thing that we have for attendance advocates, when they do the home visit and when they have the attendance meetings, they take that approach with the parents. And it's like, if I go to your house to tell you your kid is not here at school, the attendance advocates give all the positives, why it's important. They use that opportunity, not coming to your house to punish you. I'm coming here to tell you why we need you, your kid in school. So that's a moment where the attendance advocate educates parents in a one-on-one basis, and those are the parents that we really want to reach out to. And when the parents attend to the attendance meeting at the school, that's the other opportunity when the attendance team is together with the parent. It's like, this is why we need you here. And when we include the kids on the attendance meeting, that's the opportunity, because they create something. One of the interventions is the student attendance success plan, and they create together a plan for attendance to be successful for the kid. The kids sign it, the parents sign it, so it's like it's a compromise. And that's the opportunity this amazing team takes to educate and say why, because I think the approach has to be on a one-on-one, and those are the parents that we need to touch, because on a general way, yes, in the community centers, we're going to start providing all this education, but it's those parents that we really need to help them understand how important it is.
Thank you. And my last question is on one of the slides you had, social media. What do you mean social media? Like,
That's Adriana.
So we do have an Instagram account. We have Facebook as well. And so we have Mr. Adrian Ortegon. He's the one that posts the videos for us.
what is, so we can follow you, what is it called?
Attendance for Success.
Attendance for, just like that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments?
And they are always highlighting those little improvements, those kids that are improving, like really highlighting the positives on that social media.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies, for your presentation. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 11C, student nutrition Thanksgiving meal. Superintendent Dempsey, and I was the board member who asked for this agenda item to be placed on tonight's agenda. Mr. Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, so if you're not aware, we do at our elementary, well, actually, K-12, we offer every student a Thanksgiving meal. At our elementaries, it has become such a well-attended event that, quite frankly, it's really difficult to serve it all. And so I believe 2 years ago, and Ms. Cadena, I might need your help here, but because I'll get you up here because I'm sure going to mess something up. We decided just the management of it all and really capacity, because we have fire marshal requirements. I'm not kidding when I say like everybody wanted to come. We only offered the parents the opportunity to purchase a meal and have that meal with their child to K through 3. And is that right?
That's correct, sir.
K3. And so that's our current practice right now. And I think that was something you wanted to discuss.
Yes, so I do have several questions, and just advocate. advocating on behalf of parents, and then questions that parents have asked me. And as I waited in line today, I actually, it's just suggestions for improvement, because I think it's all about communication. And if we do that, parents are not going to be upset as long as we let them know ahead, and no surprises, so nobody gets upset, So I guess here I go with my questions, is that obviously I know that capacity has a lot to do with how much how many individuals can be in the cafeteria at once. So I guess maybe I'm answering my question. So based on capacity, but how do y'all determine how many tickets are sold?
Good afternoon, Madam President,
Good
board
evening.
members, Mr. Dempsey. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Ms. Almeraz. She's the Director of Student Nutrition, and she can answer your questions, and I will answer anything that she needs help with.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Madam President, the process is that our manager, our cafeteria manager, she usually goes to the the front office and asks them for an enrollment from kinder through third grade.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we base the numbers. Sometimes we don't sell all the tickets. Maybe later on we can visit again and maybe do it something more, maybe first come, first serve.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I need the support on the school administrators to give us a limit.
Okay, so because I'm not clear. So yes, I understand you would go to the office to get an enrollment form to figure out, okay, there's let's
How
say
many?
that there's 100 kindergartners. So then how do you, because I'm asking because people are asking me, so that way they can hear and then they can I can refer them to the recording. So then after the enrollment of a grade level or all kinder through third, so what's your next step to determine the number of tickets you're going to sell?
Yes, we do 2 per student or 2 per family,
Okay.
per se. Yeah, it's actually 2 per family because then maybe there's 2-3 kids in the same school, different grade levels. And
That's
what was the other question? I'm sorry.
So no, that answers that question, is that, so then you get the number of enrolled students and then multiplied by 2 because you're allowing 2 adults to come to visit with their kiddos.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how many tickets we print.
Okay. My next question is regarding the cost of the meal. So this year, how much did you charge?
This year it was $8.40.
How much?
$8.40.
$8.40. Now, I realize as a consumer that we all are faced with inflation, but how would you explain that neighboring districts have not drastically increased the prices we have here in Gadsden? Knowing that inflation hits the whole nation.
Right. Well, we've based it on the actual cost of the food because, as you know, for a student meal, we get reimbursed. So that's the difference. And because of the cost of turkeys, and I don't know if you've noticed that this year there's not a huge sales on turkeys. They're pretty expensive for some reason, and it just depends. So we're trying to cover the cost not just of the food, but some of the labor involved, because those are not reimbursable meals from the USDA or the state. And I wasn't aware that surrounding school districts charge less. They might be willing to, take the hit on the cost of the food, but that's something we can look into if you want us to.
Yes, if we can, just something to think about. And, I'm going to do my homework and go to those neighboring schools and find out how they're able to do that, and if in fact they're taking a hit, because also we serve, it's a low socioeconomic, and so, we, as parents, we want to be there for their kids, but how many maybe can't go because of the price ticket? And so that would be something that I would appreciate that us to consider and look into that. Thank you. The next question is, so watching on Facebook, schools posting their announcements for attendance. So some were announcing, so does now this is probably not an SMP decision, is this a campus decision of, you can bring, if you did not, or if you weren't able to purchase a ticket, can you bring your own food? Can you still join your student? Who decides that?
Madam President, that is usually a campus decision. We encourage the school administration that if they want to allow parents to come and eat with their children while they, bring their own food or just sit there and eat and while the student eats, they can do that. But again, I think the schools are also concerned at times with capacity because I know that some of the schools were even setting up tables and chairs in the hallways, and that's very dangerous, especially if we need to evacuate the building for some reason, God forbid. But I think that's kind of what they do. Some schools allow it, some don't, but it's really a school-based decision. SMP doesn't get involved in that.
So I think I would definitely agree that we have to be careful with capacity, and definitely 100% agree that we should not be having people in the hallways because that is dangerous. So with that being said, I guess in future reference, if we can, as I stood there in line today, I'm being transparent, is that there was, and I wasn't upset. I am like, no, the ones that get because I didn't buy a ticket because I'm not going to pay $8 and whatever cents for that. So I stayed in the line of no ticket, and then yes, rightfully so, 100% I agree that the parents that paid the ticket should go in first. The thing that I started hearing around me were parents complaining, nobody told us that they were going to go in first. To me, it's logical. You let them go in first, the ones that have tickets. But, all of that, I think I'm going to recommend or suggest that, communicate that to parents so that they're not, and I know it's not, between you and the campuses, let parents know on the flyers, hey, we're going to be selling tickets. You have this amount of time. Parents, if this is something that you do every year with your child, be on top of it so that you get a ticket if you choose to buy a ticket. And then, campuses, let the parents know, hey, we're going to let those that have tickets go in first, et cetera, so that there's no surprises and no disgruntled folks. You're communicating up ahead what's going to happen. Would be greatly appreciated. What else? I guess that's it. Oh no, I actually have I was talking to Mr. Dempsey, so how would you answer is how do you decide that it should be kinder through third who gets to eat with their parents and not fourth and fifth? Is that your decision or is that a campus decision?
It was actually a CMT decision, President Flores. We brought it back when we enacted that. We brought the question to CMT, and the thinking was that they were the younger students, and that typically, it's questionable. Maybe fourth, they still want their parents eating with them, but maybe fifth and sixth didn't. Less likely, but that's kind of just a decision. And then also, we wanted to kind of cut the numbers in half. So, K through 3, and then 4, 5, 6, we'd have half the enrollment to deal with.
Okay. And I just wanted you to know that, parents, as you're listening or watching the recording later on, yes, capacity has a lot to do with it. And while, yes, you might have kids in other grade levels, and it would be beautiful for you to be eating with all your kids, it's just not permissible with the capacity. So I do, when we have concerns, what do they say? Come with a solution. So I'm going to make a suggestion, and I was sharing to Mr. Dempsey, is that, maybe we look into the future where, the Thanksgiving lunch can be for kinder through third, and then fourth, fifth, and sixth, maybe we can have Christmas lunch with them. Make pozole or whatever is on, something that's Christmassy, so that parents can also have the opportunity to enjoy a meal or go, sit down with their fourth, fifth, and sixth, because, I think that's a wonderful opportunity, because just because they're older does not mean that the parents don't want to be there. And yes, kids when they get older, we don't, some, well, I'm gonna say we, some of them don't want their parents, but you know what? I was a kid who always appreciated my parents, and so why take away that from our 4th, 5th, and 6th? So that's just a suggestion on my behalf, sir, and to the CNP team to consider. That way, parents can have the opportunity to enjoy a meal with the kiddos. And the last thing that I wanted to say was, I always appreciate our teachers, our staff members, who do choose to go ahead and eat with their students that day, because we as working parents, we might not be able to join our kiddos that day, and then I know especially with the little ones, they'll cry, get upset. So kudos to those teachers who I saw at Sunrise Elementary, but I know that you're out there in our other schools that decide to eat with their kids that did not have an opportunity for their parents to come. And other times I've seen some teachers who will take the kids to their classroom, and there's an opportunity for more space capacity. Just food for thought. But I really appreciate you teachers, staff members doing that for our kiddos, because that shows you care. So any other questions, comments, or concerns regarding this matter, sir?
I'll be really quick, I promise. How many tickets do you anticipate selling this year? How many did you sell? Oh, it was today? Well, how many tickets did you sell?
I had that information. I have it in an email. I don't have the number on top of my head. Yeah, a little bit, like about 2,000 or so.
2,000?
Mm-hmm. It's just we had a glitch in our system and we couldn't input all the actual numbers for today.
16.
But
Okay.
I have the numbers. I mean, if you
And this is going to happen again
next
in
year?
Christmas?
Or in Christmas, we can talk and.
Madam President, board members, just for clarity, we don't have a Christmas meal planned. We do this for Thanksgiving only once a year. I just want, and I know you guys get this, and it is a production. It takes a lot. I believe the turkeys have to be ordered by September now. So that gives you some idea what it takes to plan this. We're having to make those type of decisions in September to be able to make sure we can accommodate it all. 5 to 6 lunch runs, which takes, you also have to consider, and I realize, education, learning math is not everything we do at school, but you're going to lose another instructional day when you do that. So you just have to keep that in mind. There's 183 days that students need to be learning reading, math, and writing, and we may be giving up one of those.
Okay. And my follow-up request is that when you do have those numbers, if you could email them to us, I think that'll help us prepare for next year. And then maybe what we can do is find a way to fundraise to help offset the cost of those tickets for some of those people.
And that's why
That's next.
yeah, and that's why I was saying that making because yes, the Christmas dinner does not happen, but it was a suggestion, and I totally appreciate your comments, sir. But as Ms. Villalobos has said before too, is that mass love before blooms. We have to be welcome communities, and we cannot forget our 4th and 5th and 6th graders. Maybe let's try it and see how it works if you all want to. It's just a suggestion, but yeah.
We can definitely try. I have a couple of questions. So I've been in the district for about 7 years, and I remember being with all 3 of my kids, even in 5th, 6th grade. Maybe it wasn't not in this district. Maybe it was when I was working in another district. But I remember a specific, that district, they broke down the hours, so all the students were involved. So it was started with a breakfast. So it started at 9 in the morning, and then every hour it was per grade. I don't know if that's something that we can do for Thanksgiving, or K through 2nd and then 3rd and 4th, because I am going to advocate for the special ed population. Yes, 8th graders, freshmen. I still they still should be part of all that, and they're not. None of them. And I can tell you because my kid is one of them. And he did text me. He said, "Are you gonna come?" And I'm like, "No, I'm out of town." I'm like, "Are you guys even doing that?" He said, "Never mind. Not a single parent showed up." But it's because they didn't do it. But he already had that. So I'm thinking transition wise, right? They're so used to this because they've been doing it since preschool. They hit 7th grade. Nobody told him. I didn't tell him that he was not going to have that this year, right? So then I'm started thinking, I'm like, well, he already asked about this. What about everybody else, right? What about the other kids? What about high school from 8th grade to 9th grade? So I do think it's a lot of work for Christmas to do something like that. I'm even going to challenge the parents. We PTO, so a group of parents, bring a dessert. I remember I volunteered. I was asked by a teacher, can you come and make tamales for my classroom? And they added as an educational tool that we started doing math, and we started the kid ran a whole class. But I remember 7 parents, we showed up to the classroom and we started baking and making tamales for all these kids. So I do think that there are opportunities for the teachers to think outside of the box and bring opportunities for parent involvement. But I do think that if we have those parents that really want to be there, in all grade levels, all the way to high school, because I heard it too, and it might be embarrassing for the kid, yeah, but not every kid is the same way. They're kids that they have that community, they have that culture, that the parents have always been there, and they're always going to be there, right? So, and it's unfortunate, maybe you're only going to sell 50 tickets, or maybe you're only going to sell 20, but at least the opportunity was there. Because I think that you guys sold tickets for the teachers, right?
We do for staff and faculty, yes, ma'am. And going back to your, I'm sorry, Madam President, board members, and Mr. Superintendent Dempsey, going back to your suggestion as far as starting with breakfast, starting that early. I know that some of the schools even today broke it up into several lunch runs, starting at 10:15, correct? So, and all the way to almost 1 o'clock. So they did make the effort. But the other thing is that even if we start at breakfast, we still have to serve the regular breakfast plus the meals, the Thanksgiving meal to the students and the parents that buy tickets. So it's just but all that has to be worked out with Mr. Dempsey and the school administrators. Basically, S&P, will do what they have to. I think I want you to know that, and Ms. Almeras can give you more information, but the kitchen staff doesn't just work on that meal that day. They start a week ahead, correct? Go ahead.
We have to submit our orders a month and a half in advance to make sure we have all the items and ingredients. Just for Thanksgiving meal, it takes us about a week of preparation. Just the cooking of the turkey, cooling down completely, and slicing it, it takes 3 days. So it is a lot of work. I'm proud of my staff. They're hard workers. And on top of the Thanksgiving lunch, they still serve all week their after-school snacks and dinner. So it is a very hard week for them, and they still are able to pull it off. So thank you for my staff, because they're awesome.
Okay, so we do order full-size turkeys. We're not ordering turkey breasts.
It's turkey roast.
Huh?
It's a turkey roast.
Yes. Is it bones and everything?
It's a big piece of turkey.
So it's not, you don't have, no, I know it's an actual turkey,
no,
but you don't have
deboning.
bones or anything like that, correct? So it's like a big chicken. Okay.
Yes, it's a big roll like that. And it has all white and brown meat all together, no bones.
So then why does it take longer if you're not desmenuzando?
Because you have to cool it down completely before you can slice it. This year we had a little glitch since I guess the turkey had more fat and it was desmenuzándose solo. So some schools had it sliced, some had more shredded. We never know with food, and it was a little more fat, and it was juicy though. It was pretty good.
Okay. So I have a request from you all. I would actually like to look at the numbers of like your cost, multiplying how much you're, the cost that you're giving to the families and are we evening out, or are we making, breaking even, or, I would like to sit down if that's possible, or at the next board meeting, sir.
Madam President, board members, we're always happy to provide you those numbers. I want to caution everybody, if there's anything as a superintendent I have tried to stay away from, it's micromanaging student nutrition. It is very difficult of a job to meet the nutrition guidelines, which this meal doesn't meet nutrition guidelines, correct?
I don't think so, because it's a
Right.
whole full meal.
It's one of the few that we are allowed to do. The amount of work and preparation, I don't think we can emphasize enough how much of a effort this takes by some of our lowest paid employees in the district. So I want to caution us to be critical of this in a manner that I just want us to pause here a little bit and realize this is a production, and it is not an easy thing to do. We also have allergies for students. We can't just be bringing in food from random places. We have to make sure that it's safe. If someone gets sick from this, we are responsible for every single bit of it. I would argue if 2,000 tickets were sold, sounds to me like the price is pretty good. 2,000 people thought it was great.
We can get you numbers. I'll email them.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 10D, the 2025-26 school calendar. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Wogermuth will be doing this presentation, hopefully without any help from me.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, thank you for having me back on behalf of Academic Services for our annual discussion about the school calendar. I know we have a couple of new board members. This is their first time with the go-around on the school calendar. I know board member Lito was with us for the final approval, just wasn't in on the first step. So there's a couple of bits in here that you two may be familiar with, but I want to make sure that board member Morales and board member Lita are familiar with. So a couple of things to know about school calendar development. Number one, our goal in developing the school calendar is to prioritize and maximize student learning, along with supporting teacher teaming and planning. That is the core purpose of when we design an academic school calendar. Another important thing to understand is that the school calendar development is an initial step in the budgeting process. When you approve the budget, you'll also approve a calendar that goes along with it. The calendar, instructional hours, days, and requirements can change yearly based on NMPED or New Mexico legislative action. So we typically do a calendar annually because those requirements are sometimes different annually. Those of you that have been on the board have known over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had significant changes over and over again from the PED and from the legislature about what counts as days on a calendar. Now I'm gonna knock on wood here that we don't anticipate any changes. However, please remember that the current PED rule about instructional hours and calendar days is currently under an injunction. So just want to share that with you. This has been our sort of pattern that we've used the last 3 or 4 years regarding developing our school year calendar. We always start off with the calendar pre-planning survey that goes out to the community, which I'm going to share with you the results today. We're going to get some additional staff and committee input. That staff input comes via our trenches and support trenches group. We take this for parent input back to Equity Council. We'll develop some calendar drafts based on what we learn. We will then review those drafts with stakeholders. We'll try to bring you some drafts for review on the first board meeting in January. We'll adjust the drafts based on feedback from the board and additional community feedback. Then we will have our final drafts. We'll have some stakeholder voting in mid to late January, and then we hope to bring you calendars to approve by possible action by the end of January. This was kind of our timeline last year, and again, with those legislative and PED actions, sort of got us a little later than we would like on the final approval. Again, things to keep in mind as we are planning our calendar, we keep these in mind. We want to, start on our calendar process every year so we can make sure we get a lot of input and make sure we get that out in time for families to, plan their next year. We want to make sure in our calendar we keep our existing planning and collaboration time. I think we see some academic things moving up as per our designations, and we think we're seeing some continued benefits from those opportunities. We want to use that current planning time, as those of you that went to the Marzano High Reliability Summit last year or 2 years ago, I think it was. We want to focus on 1.4, right? Giving teachers time to work in collaborative groups. And we have these 8 PD days that are built into our calendar. And the challenge has been where to best place those to get the best impact. We had done something for a very long time. We tried something a little bit different this year. And we'll see we got some little feedback on that. We may shift that up a little bit this year. So I think another thing to understand is, and I'll go over this later, there's requirements from the state. There's never as much flexibility in the calendar with days as we would like. That has increased over the years as the PED requirements have really become more extended and stringent. And when we get to the drafts, I'll talk about those parameters a little bit more. Again, like I said, legislature's coming up. It's a 60-day session. In 60-day sessions, they sometimes discuss these things. However, no indication right now that they're going to be doing anything with the instructional hours. We also want to make sure we're aligned with our NMSU and DACC calendars, especially around those fall or spring especially spring break. We want to make sure that those align as best we can for all of our Alta Vista students and our kids on the regular campuses that are in dual credit courses. It's really important, the location of our community, that we also pay very close attention to the trends in other districts around us and regional calendars. We have a lot of families that work here and work there, and kids go here and live over there. And we want to make sure that when it comes to breaks and vacations, we have some alignment to accommodate that as best we can. This also will always require a review by GISD Finance and Human Resources to ensure that they're in compliance with payroll and other matters in that area. And then, of course, we'll review our stakeholder survey results. And, we also want to make sure we currently have, usually a year or two in advance, we reserve graduation dates with UTEP, and they've been great to us. We want to make sure we align to that as well. And then for your reference, these are the days for NMSU and DACC holidays that we refer to. So every year we send out a pre-planning survey. If you're parents, you may have received it via Remind. Also goes out to staff. This is a little breakdown of who responded at what location. The numbers in green there are the total number of parents. We had a little over 1,000 responses this year. That's about 100 more than last year. So we had a little bit more response this year on our pre-planning survey. You can see the staff and parent results there. Obviously, the larger bars are the high schools. They typically have larger responses just because they have obviously a larger student population. So we asked some staff questions, some parent questions, and some are combined. This is kind of a staff question, and we asked them, where do you want the 8 professional development days to be located? And the options were 6 days at the beginning of fall and 2 days. Do you want 7 days and 1 day, or do you want them spread throughout the school year? So here, if you look at kind of our classified and certified staff, they're telling us, hey, we kind of on the edge prefer trying to spread them out throughout the year, okay? Last year we had a very similar result. We front-loaded them all this year, but I think this data is telling us, hey, we may want to consider counter options that just have those PD days spread out. We asked them, they also get 1 work day where they're not in PD in the fall. We asked them where we wanted that. We worded this question a little bit different to get better data. This is clearly telling us that they want that 1 uninterrupted work day the day before students return. So if we return on a Wednesday and we have 6 PD days at the start of the year, they want the last day before kids come back, they want that uninterrupted. And so we've put that in different places. This data is pretty clear on where the staff would prefer that day. We also ask them when they want their one spring day. This sometimes is they want it at the beginning of January, depending on what days we have available. We currently offer it the last day after school is out to wrap things up as the uninterrupted workday. So depending on our calendar, we may be able to offer in May again and in January, as indicated here. But right now we've done May, and that's been successful. We always ask them, and for the reference for Mr. Morales and Mr. Lira, we've asked the same similar set of questions each year to look for trends. And what I do want to tell you, and this is for Ms. Murillo and Ms. Flores as well, I was doing this. The trends and responses, they're almost identical. I almost thought I was using the wrong information. They were so close. So if you two are sitting here going, well, this sounds like last year, it's the community is telling us the same thing, which I think says something important, that the things that were important 2 years ago and last year are still important this year to them. But we'll keep asking. We asked the instructional staff if Saturday PD was optional, would you attend with compensation? Again, this was very similar to last year. A little bit over half say yes, they would attend. Then we asked them, have they ever attended a Saturday PD session? And it's very encouraging to know that about half of our staff, our certified staff, has attended a Saturday PD session. However, we can work on seeing what opportunities might offer for classified staff to come on Saturdays. This is kind of tiny writing here. We've asked this question in a couple of different fashions, and this will be critical in our calendar development this year. We've asked it a couple of different ways. This is asking, would you support extending the workday by 30 minutes for teachers and classroom IAs? They're the ones that are currently on basically a 7.5-hour contract, to make sure we can accommodate the extended minutes that went into effect last year on our campuses. Right now, because they extended the hour requirements for us, it's a little that a little kind of a morning and afternoon dismissal crunch. And we have many school districts around us that are on an 8-hour workday with obviously they're included in that their half-hour duty-free lunch. We've asked them, hey, would you be willing to add 30 minutes to flexible on scheduling for pickup and drop-off? Again, this is the same trend as last year. They're saying no. Obviously, given no context here of compensation, no compensation, those different things, but just kind of asked plainly. This is how folks are responding to that question. However, it's very likely we're going to need to, continue to look at this with our union partners about the length of the workday. We always ask, when do you want parent conferences? Do you want them, all day with no students there? Do you want them in an evening and then in a morning? Again, our trend is very strongly has remained here. Thursday after school, and then Friday in the morning. That Friday, there's no students. So this is how we've had our parent conferences in our district the last several years. Again, this trend seems to be something that our community prefers in general. Length of fall break, we always ask about the fall break. Do you want to have a whole week off, or do you want a long weekend that includes a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then maybe like a Monday, Indigenous Peoples Day? And this looks like the same graph as last year. It's a pretty resounding thanks, but no thanks. We'd like to keep the fall break as is. We asked, again, what would be your first priority for a school? We have individual days that we can take off. What would be your preference your first preference of an individual day? And this is the same as last year. Our community is saying, if our first priority for one day off is Good Friday. It's a very culturally important day. And what will be a second priority? They're telling us Veterans Day. So the two top number one priorities are Spring Holiday and Veterans Day. We added this question last year. What would be your second set of priorities? And they're telling us their second set of priorities is a President's Day for staff, President's Day for parents. But again, we see a strong pointing here towards Veterans Day, okay, which I think is wonderful for our community. So again, our trends are telling us Good Friday, Veterans Day, those are important. A little wrinkle for Mr. Lira and Mr. Morales. Due to a state law last year, all general election days, doesn't matter if it's on-cycle or off-cycle election, are now required to be school holidays. Okay, so that takes an option that we had to use that day for a different holiday. Now we must have all general election days in November off. We asked this question the last couple of years, and we added kind of a somewhat interested in here. To what extent would how interested would you be in GISD considering a school year-round continuous calendar like some neighboring districts? Gave some context in the question about 1 week for intercession and tutoring, 1 week off. Again, this has been the trend for the last several years, and when you ask groups of students, they'll say the same things. It's really not something that our parents are very interested in. They give us a big hard no, and then kinda, and then yes. So when you take all the hard no's, that's a little bit more than the maybes and the yeses. Our staff trends more on the no. There's more staff, more certified staff that's interested in somewhat exploring it, and then there's also a contingency that is pretty strong for it. So again, this trend of maybe not is been pretty standard here in the district. To wrap things up here, we also asked for comments. Put any comments that you want in there. And so these is a little breakdown of use a little AI to look at some of the comments. Only 24 people left. Percent of the folks left comments. People who leave comments are usually passionate one way or the other on something. That's typically how that works in surveys. Some general trends, which are not unlike the trends we've had before in our comments. Align the breaks with neighboring districts. More breaks in the spring. Year-round calendar. Limited support for parents. Split support for staff. We always get some pretty good non-calendar related comments in there. And so we try as academic services to all the comments, especially those ones, email those parents who gave those and give them a response. Early outs, we always have the thing, can we keep them? Can we move them? Well, we don't want to have them. So you kind of have this split of keep it, we like it, keep the calendar as is, we like the consistency. Could you change the early outs to a different day and no early outs? So there's kind of a mix of that. That's been the trend the last couple of years there. And then again, and I'll point this out for Board Member Lita and Board Member Morales in a second. This comes up often. 4-day school week. Okay, this is a thing that comes up every year, very consistent. So I'll share a little bit with that here as I wrap up on these last two slides. So a little clarification about 4-day school weeks. This is a little more complicated now with the PED rule that's like in an injunction. So in spring 2024, the NAP adopted a rule that allowed schools to have less than the required 180 days based on assessment and proficiency data, okay? This new rule impacted schools that were already on a 4-day week that were gonna have to go to a 5-day week. That was not well received with many districts in the state, so that was put into rule, and 1 month later, there was an injunction, okay? So typically when there's an injunction placed about a rule or a law or a count, you go back to what the other law is. And so the original law about 4-day weeks was passed in 2018 by the legislature that put a hold on any new schools moving to 4-day weeks. So if you were a 4-day week in 2018, that was good, but they would not permit anybody additionally to become a 4-day week. And obviously in 2018, Gadsden was not a 4-day week. With the current 2018 law, would not allow us to become a 4-day week. There's no indication on what's going to happen in 2025 with 4-day weeks. And so in Gadsden, we're going to operate under the existing rule of we can't move to any 4-day weeks. And then we'll see what pans out with that. And we can have those discussions at a later time if it were to come up. And then lastly, summary. I just wanted to let you all know the survey, the pre-planning survey results were almost identical. Okay, almost identical. PD days, a little more favored this year in distributing them throughout the school year, so we want to look at that. The trends for what holidays and length of breaks, again, the same. Again, some desire to add more, another day off in the spring. which is when you'll see the drafts, we can do that, but that means another day not off in the fall. And usually those have to come from Thanksgiving break or October break. And we know how our community feels about keeping the October break at 5 days. No strong interest in the school year calendar from parents. Staff is divided. Again, I've summarized the comments again there. We'll be able to respond to email to some of those comments to clarify for our parents. I think that's important. And then, we want to make sure our calendars provide a good structure for learning and collaboration. But I think the most important thing is this, and I know Superintendent Dempsey's asked this of Academic Services several times. The parents they like the consistency. They like to know what to plan for. And Mr. Dempsey has asked several times, and I think maybe Academic Services may get around to this one day, could we put out a calendar for 2 years? And we've been able to hold off on that because the legislature has been in such flux about their days. What we don't want to do is publish a calendar for 2 years and then change it. We've been very fortunate the last few years. We presented information to you all as a board. We've been able to establish a calendar, establish breaks, and once it's been approved, it hasn't changed. Sometimes that takes a little later in the year, but if the PED will sort of settle down a little bit with this requirements on days and hours, we may be able to then, at some point, based on our information here, the community is saying, keep it the same. If they're telling us keep it the same, then we can put out 2 years of calendars as long as the PED doesn't change things and make us have to go back and change it. And then the community is bothered by why are we changing it? And sometimes they don't accept because the state made us. So we want to be careful there. So that is a summary of the pre-planning survey. Our next step will be to create some drafts. So are there any clarifications I can provide on anything that was shared these last few minutes?
Ms. Murillo.
Thank you for mentioning the 2 years because a lot of people were asking me that I guess EPISD, they do it on a 2 year, so they want to plan for vacation or whatever, and they just can't because they're waiting on us. And I told them, usually January. I don't remember if the fall break changed or not by a week or two. I think I saw it a couple of years ago that it was like a week of a difference. But you mentioned something in one of the slides about the UTEP graduations. Is that something that, because I think this, are we due to have that contract with them for graduations the next 2 years? Because with them, we do it every 2 years too, right?
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, in relation to graduation, we always provide them, you sort of have what UTEP does, they provide an order on which you have kind of preference, and you kind of cycle that order who you have preference. We typically give the folks at UTEP days for 2 years ahead of time, dates and times, and then they'll put those on a hold for us, and then they'll give the other districts that are higher, cycle than us, chance to pick, and then they'll say, you know what, those dates you asked for hold are available based on the cycle. We're going to confirm those for you. So they'll always confirm those as a hold, typically in July before the year starts. They'll give us a final day on those.
Okay. And then another question was that how come they wanted an option of having instead of Good Friday to have the Monday after Easter? Because I guess other districts, they have both days, but I'm like, well, we can't have both days. But I thought it was actually a pretty good idea to have the Monday after. That how come it wasn't a question? But I don't know if people asked, because I know they had the comments and people were like, well, we asked. So I don't know if that's something that you saw and it was like several parents or a good chunk.
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, and analyzing the parent comments, there was a couple in there. It wasn't a lot, and from the staff as well. But that is something that comes up every year, and like I'll continue to share as we go through this. And again, it's a challenge. We have start dates and end dates that we traditionally have here in Gadsden. The PED gives us these parameters, and every year they add another little required thing and another little required thing, and that takes a little bit of flexibility off of our plate. I always say, and I'll mention again, we can have more breaks in the spring. That just is less days off in the fall.
No, I'm saying like to switch. Instead of being off on Good Friday, to be off the Monday after Easter.
Thank you, Ms. Murillo, for that clarification. I didn't see that.
Okay.
I saw the Monday off in addition to Good Friday is what I saw on the comments. But I'll go back and reread those to make sure I read those accurately.
Okay. And then I had another question I forgot. Sorry, I forgot. I'll come back.
So, she actually touched on two questions that I had.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what's the reason again for why? Like I would love for our staff to have Good Friday, like they're asking to, and Monday. So, what's the reason for not being able to do that?
So we have a certain number of days that we have to work in the parameters we have. So we have a start date in July or August. We have an end date that we have in May. We have to meet those day requirements between when we start in the end of July and when we end in June. We could have another day. It's just that it would push the end day further into May or June, right? Or the start date earlier into July. Does that make sense? So, you can extend when you start and end. That gives you more days you can take off in the middle, but you got to work them at the front or the end of the calendar. Our community does kind of like the longer summers, so we try to make sure we're not starting, in the middle of July. Mr. Dempsey?
And I think what I agree with Mr. Morgan, what he's saying, it either, and now understanding that we set graduations with the facility in July. And so the end date's not really possible to move. We got to move the start date or give up part of our Thanksgiving break, fall break, or spring break.
I guess I'll think about it because, again, I know maybe you don't like hearing this, but, neighboring district year-round, they do get that Monday off. And so, is it just this... I'd be curious for the possibilities that you can come up with and to ask everybody involved in the survey. I'm just curious to see what their responses would be if we were to extend the end date or move the begin date by one day. I'm just curious.
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, when we make the drafts as academic services, we can certainly include some drafts that have that in there. I'll always caution on moving, and Mr. Dempsey can correct me if I'm wrong on here. Always caution on when you start dates and end dates, especially the start date of the school year. When it comes to teachers, there's also an impact in finance and when checks are put out, how much insurance comes out. So we want to be careful of that too. I'm not an expert in that, but I do know that a payroll always says, okay, you need to bring those drafts over to me, Nick, to make sure we're not doing something that's going to affect people. Always will get their money. It's just that if we shift things too much, but we'll be happy to consider that academic services, Ms. Flores.
And then like I mentioned, she had mentioned, Ms. Murillo, about graduation, because I was actually going to bring up her concern that, some families, and correct me if I'm not articulating what you had articulated like a year ago, is that, it's Memorial Day weekend, correct? Is it Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, ma'am.
And so some families might choose to travel or whatever, but and so as of right now, our dates for graduation are already set, correct?
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, obviously for this school year, they're set. And then we received confirmation for the 25-26 school year. I don't know if I've requested on behalf of the district any potential holds for the 26-27 school year.
Because I would be curious to include, like on a survey, a question that asks, hey, do you like the way it is, or would you like it changed? I'm just curious to see what the response is of the community for the future.
Madam President, I think as academic services, we can discuss, on what flexibility we have for planning graduation dates. I'm just gonna, UTEP has something like, it's like a 32, 40 different graduation dates, and so I can have a conversation with Ricky and UTEP and see what other dates are available. And again, every year a district gets preferred. So this year might be Gadsden's date, that Gadsden opportunity to get the preferred dates of graduation, right? You name it, you get your first pick. Okay, well then we're going to drop down to the bottom of that list the next year, and we'll put in dates, and then they'll say, well, sorry, you put in those, so you're not going to get those this year. And we're probably cycling through about 6 districts. So from a planning perspective and a counter planning perspective, I definitely can understand the feedback you're getting from constituents regarding, hey, can we do something different on Memorial Day? At some point we probably could, but it might just be for the 26-27 school year, right? We would have first choice. And then it might not be for 6 more years. And then you have your graduation dates changing every year. Does that make sense? Because of where we fall in the order picking. So there's this balance between, we put in our request, it's Memorial Day weekend. Those are typically available. Why? Because El Paso typically ends later. So usually we're able to get our choice of Memorial Day regardless of where we're falling on the UTEP cycle of preference. It's absolutely, when we get to the top of that, we can get a different date, but what will happen is, is those dates will shift differently from year to year. And if we want to put out a 2-year calendar in the future, that's hard to do because graduation dates kind of move around. So again, I understand what you're saying, and I definitely work with the academic services to get more feedback on that.
Okay. No, I appreciate it because, if you had stated this in another board meeting, I don't remember. But now I understand that there is preferences given on a rotation cycle to districts.
And Madam President, I had not mentioned that cycle of first choice in a board meeting.
So this is the first time.
This is the first time I've mentioned that portion. So you're
okay, because
you're
I'm
good.
like my memory. Okay. So no, so thank you for sharing that because that makes so much sense. And then for the viewers watching out there, that's why I guess some things work the way they work, and maybe we should leave them alone. And and then I do notice, that I didn't know that there was preferences, but the districts seem to keep their same calendar too, is what I'm noticing. Because it's like us and then the PISD and then YSD, et cetera, et cetera. Mrs. Murillo.
I remember. Early outs. I remember asking you this and I forgot the answer. So if you can just refresh my memory, because people ask me about this and I'm like, I asked. Early outs on Friday instead of Wednesday. What was that?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. So we have had this conversation in academic services internally, separate from calendar conversation. The examples of success when we initially started early outs that we looked at in Arizona and we looked at in other places in New Mexico, the greatest success rate for the teacher collaboration was on Wednesdays. Because what the trends that other districts were seeing relative to the collaboration, which is the point of early out Wednesdays is to foster that collaboration. The trend they started seeing was, well, I moved those to Fridays, and now I have a lot of my staff taking off. I'm not able to collaborate, right? And so then they began to lose some of the impact of the collaboration element of the early outs. So again, when we're seeing growth in collaboration, we're seeing some increased academic success. This is only our 3rd year we've done early outs on Wednesdays. We've been looking to evolve how that time is effectively being used as we've learned stuff throughout our years in doing this. And so that is the primary reason they remain on Wednesdays, because we want to hold tight to that collaboration that is occurring, and other places that have done it had more success on Wednesdays with the staff.
In the last one, for graduation, I remember asking you, and this was a me and you conversation, for having all those graduations on Saturday and splitting them, having DPA and Alta Vista on Friday and then the other ones on Saturday, just because of the things that we were seeing, people having their parties during the day and then had to stop their parties and they had to come back to graduate. But we were talking about, it's a 2-year, so they're already said and done. Is that something that we can explore now, or should we start talking about that next year and bring it up for a discussion item specifically on that?
Madam President, members of the board, Ms. Murillo, this is the conversation I recall, and again, sometimes I forget things. So I think one of the initial conversations we had about the Saturday and the Friday, right? Alta Vista on, Alta Vista on Friday, everybody else on Saturday. One was, hey, can we lessen the time between on the Saturday graduations, right? To make sure that it's a little more compact, right? That way we could not have to, start at, 8 o'clock and get done at 8 o'clock. So we were able to, for the first time, accommodate that. Last year we did reduce the time a little bit. What I don't recall, Ms. Murillo, are you saying that you and I had a conversation, the feedback you got from the community was to split the graduations over like a Saturday and a Sunday?
No, Friday.
Or just trying to get the Friday all the way into the Friday Alta Vista into the Saturday?
Yes, Friday and Saturday. It was Alta Vista and DPA just because there were smaller, smaller groups, to have them on Friday back to back, and then Saturday just doing the high schools.
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, I do recall a little bit of that conversation, and what I can share is, so the DPA graduation ceremony, you want to keep in mind, the one in December is smaller. It's usually about 40, 50 kids, and it's held in McGoffin, okay? The DPA graduation ceremony, which, if it was only 40 kids, right? The DPA ceremony in May is a much larger ceremony, including up to, 150, 160 kids. And so the conversation we really had with Evan and Ricky at UTEP last year was, okay, we want all of our community members that support the DPA kids, we want them to be able to bring every last person they could ever want to bring to a graduation ceremony. There was some concern from UTEP about, Nick, it varies from year to year. This year, with your 160 grads and all the people we had in attendance at the Don Haskins, that would have fit in McGoffin on a Friday. But this year, there was more people, they wouldn't have fit in McGoffin, and you had to issue tickets for the Desert Pride graduation in the McGoffin. And so I think from an academic services perspective and a community perspective, it was, those DPA kids, all kids have worked hard, but they're the ones that everybody is bringing them over the finish line, and we didn't want to be in a situation where we wanted to start issuing tickets for the DPA graduation on a Friday in May, because we didn't want anybody that wanted to support those kids to miss out. And that data varies from year to year, Ms. Murillo. Right. One year it might work, the next year it might not. You just never know how many folks the kids are going to bring to the ceremony. So that's why we wouldn't be able to bump them together on a Friday night.
And the only reason that I'm bringing this up is because it was brought up again, we were planning a whole party and we're always the last ones, which I understand why the last ones, right? And so we have to leave our parties, we have to leave our families behind, and then we have to stop the parties and then come and graduate. And we've seen the issues and the incidents, that are happening in between and showing up the way that they're showing up. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but you can identify those individuals. Sure. And so this is the third time that has been brought up again. Yeah. And I don't even know if that's something that, we just can't do. And then on top of that, it's a sacrifice, right? Sacrifice / amazing opportunity to be there and celebrate our students. But it is a long day too for our administrators and our staff, because you're right. When it comes to DPA, me personally, I want to be there, and all of us, we want to be there. But it is showing up 7 a.m, leaving at almost 8 o'clock at night. And so that I started seeing, the comments from the staff, for some administrators, is that something that you guys can do? And I'm like, I'll bring it up again.
Madam President, I'll conclude by saying this, board member, we can always look into those things, but here's what you made me think when I was talking, and I think, as we redo these graduation requirements and less graduation requirements are required, you may have less kids that have to go to Desert Pride. So those classes may, scale down a little bit in size. And if we ever feel as academic services and with facilities in UTEP, if we can fit a Desert Pride graduation and everybody that wants to come to that into McGoffin safely, that's a good intimate setting to do that, because you see that in the fall. I think that would be the time to do that, because at this point, if you're asking me as a former high school principal, I'm gonna put a graduation ceremony. where everybody can come. But I think the feedback is valid from the community.
My last question, and if you don't have the numbers tonight, that's okay. I'm just curious, how are we doing with early release with teacher attendance? Because I know I don't want to call it a policy or the expectation that, for example, when there's a 3-day weekend, we discourage, or it's policy that teachers not miss. How are we doing with absences? And I would hope also that, once the calendar comes out, that fellow teachers, are setting up their appointments accordingly. But we also have to take into consideration if you're really sick that day, we're not going to take punitive action. But how are we doing with that?
Madam President, I don't have that information with me, so I don't want to share with you incorrect information, but that may be good something to revisit, as a whole individual item on the agenda, or continuing to be in the context of calendars. So I'll make a note of that and work with Ms. Cumplido and information systems to try to get some hard numbers. We just got through with 40th day, so we might have some stuff out there that's a little better for you on that.
Any further questions? Mr. Morales?
Just clarification. Were there 24% of the respondents that commented, or 24 comments?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, 24% of the 1,170 respondents responded with a comment. So it was about, I had the numbers on my computer, 240 comments, maybe, something like that.
Okay, about 240.
Yeah, 200, yeah, something like that.
Somewhere around there. Will we have access to those comments?
I have the comments. Yeah, I'd be happy to provide the comments. Sure. I might mask the comment. The people.
Well, I don't need to know their names.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I may want to mask whom they're coming from, because when they're responding, typically, Mr. Morales, they respond in a manner where it's confidential. So I do want to think about that a little bit, because we didn't tell them that their comments would be shared with people.
Fine.
So let me think about that a little bit more. Sorry, I answered too fast. Let me think about that.
Yeah, we don't need their names. Just want to hear what they.
Let me think about that, because we didn't give them a disclaimer.
Okay, well, we just, they're the people we answer to.
Sure.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next discussion item is 11E, Facility Master Plan and Construction Projects Update. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Cadena and Ms. Vela are going to help us with this item.
Good evening again, President Flores, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. I presented the facility master plan back in February of this year, but I wanted to go ahead and re-present it, maybe with a few updates for Mr. Morales' benefit. And thank you, Mr. Morales, for the comment on the physical plant report. We appreciate that. So the facility master plan, any New Mexico school district seeking funding from the PSOC, PSFA for facility improvements and construction is required to have an approved facility master plan, FMP, every 5 years. The FMP is developed by an outside agency acquired through a bidding proposal process. ARC developed the current FMP. They are out of Albuquerque. The current GISD FMP is valid from 2021 to 2026. So this time next year, we'll be putting out requests for proposals to revisit or redo our facility master plan. The FMP is fluid since district priorities and conditions change over time, and as you can imagine, over 5 years, things do change from when they came and did their initial evaluation in 2021. Things have changed drastically with the district. At that time, we hadn't considered consolidation yet. We hadn't considered totally rebuilding GMS and CMS. Next slide. So the process and the structure of the FMP gathers general and specific information about the district operations, facilities, and community. They conduct site visits, interview central and campus administration and staff, as well as facilities and construction teams. They look at campus capacity, space utilization, attendance zones, geographical data, growth or decrease in population, and forecast increase and decrease in enrollment. The campus walkthroughs identify undesirable facility conditions or need for improvements or need for additions, removals, etc. And they also provide photos and descriptions for the conditions identified. The conditions are identified and they're categorized as priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and far down in the future. And I provided the link to the FMP, and I can share that link with board members. I can have Mr. Dempsey share it with you. You do have to log in with your district Microsoft account to be able to access it. It's got different volumes. What I'm showing you right here, because it's very extensive, this is a listing by school. And if you look, you can see the green, the yellow, the blue, the purple. So what we do when we first receive the FMP, we meet in the construction and physical plant departments, and we look at priority 1s and 2s, and we start addressing those, especially if they're considered safety categories. So we try to address those as soon as possible. The other items we address as either budget resources becomes available. And there's repetitiveness. If you go through and look, there's a repetitiveness that happens, that you'll see the same thing mentioned for each campus, like the door locks in the classroom. You know, they recommended we get those security door locks for when they go into lockdown. They're easy to lock from the inside of the classroom instead of locking with the key on the outside. So that's a huge ticket item that we haven't addressed yet, but we are addressing card access control for all our campuses at the moment. So this is just for your review. If when you have the chance, you can look at it. If you go to the next slide, Mr. Snowdy, please. Or if you can go back to the slide where that link was. The slide before that, sorry. I think I still had something there. So, wait, right there, thank you. And the last point I wanted to make, so if you look at what I just showed you at the very end, it says if we were to address all those items, all the categories, it would total of roughly $149 million to address everything. So that just tells you that that's the need, and that's using 2021 pricing. Who knows what it might add up to now. Okay, next slide. So this is just, if you click on that link, Mr. Snowdy, what I did is I took just the screenshots of the priority 1, and if you see all the yellow, and it's hard to see the colors, but the yellows is what we've completed, and the blues are, let me see, those are still in consideration, either in consideration in design or we're waiting on budget. But a lot of the priority ones have already been addressed. One big one was like the La Unión HVAC. What we want to do in the future is, like it's mentioned there, La Unión, the electrical upgrades. La Unión's a very old school, and it does need additional outlets, et cetera. And so as budget and resources provides, we can look at that. Then the priority 2, if you go scroll down, we've addressed the ones in red are just Sunland Park, Mesquite. Those are the consolidated schools. So we're holding off on that because they're really not safety issues. And at Sunland Park, we're just there until the Riverside Pre-K is completed. But as you can see, I mean, there's a lot of yellow that we've already completed and addressed. And that being said, we'll start moving on to looking at the priority 3 and dealing with that. Thank you, Mr. Snowdy. So in correlation with this, I wanted to have Ms. Vela give you a presentation on the construction projects that we currently have and some that are pending. And I just wanted to mention, though, that if you look at the physical plant report, we have projects going on in the physical plant, which is about 70 of them. Those are smaller projects per se, dealing with maintenance and repair, but those are still projects we have to manage. And then Ms. Vela and her coordinator have these projects, 29 of them. Actually, go ahead.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. It's my pleasure to present to you the list of our current construction projects. We have a total of 28 projects. The last 7 projects are PPD projects, but are with construction funds. You will see some projects highlighted in yellow. These projects are PSFA projects. This means that PSFA participates in the 70% and GISD pay for the 30%. The totals that you will see there on the yellow projects are only the 30% that the district is paying. As Ms. Cadena mentioned, we have a couple of projects that we still have pending proposals. And this is because we are currently working with an assessment of the design. So after we complete those assessments and the design, we will continue with the construction or the project. Yes, the total of the POs already in place. Mr. Snoddy, if you scroll down all the way on that document, it's 49.3 million as the projects that we have right now. Okay. And then on the bottom page, we have the pending projects and the current construction budget. This is for the Chaparral. We have the Chaparral Middle School, the new construction. We're currently working on the design for this middle school. And we have an estimated district share with PSFA approval of 30 million, and that will be only the district match. On this project, we're going to continue having the 70 and 30% match with PSFA. So we're just estimating to have a 30 million for the construction. Then we have the Gadsden Middle School and Gadsden High School sewage connection to Anthony Water and Sanitation project. That's an estimated of 8 million. And we will be ready to advertise starting next year. Then we have the district-wide kitchen boiler replacement. This one is gonna be like around, it's just an estimate of $600,000. And also we will be ready to do this project on next year. And we have the district-wide fire alarm replacements of 2 million. And this one, we will have a share with PSFA. The total of pending projects is 40.6 million. Then saying that, can you just go down a little more? Slowly, please. We have a current construction budget with estimated revenue from the GL bonds. The current construction budget available, it's 11.3 million. Our operational funds for the Gadsden Middle School, Gadsden High School sewage connection, we have 8 million. And GO bond revenue projected in the fiscal year 25-26, we have 9.5 million. The total budget through the 25-26 is 28.8 million. Will be needed 11.7 million to complete the whole list of the projects. We stand for any questions you may have.
Questions?
I have one.
Go ahead, sir.
When's the next bond election?
I was about to say that, Mr. Morales. It's we have to do it next November, so November of 2025, and it'll be in effect 2026 in the next 4 years. And that's, I was going to say, the funds needed, the 11 million that we will need, then we can count on GO bond, and then if there's any availability of operational funds as well.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see that we're moving towards card access control. I remember, I don't know how long ago I had mentioned that, so that is awesome. Does that mean that teachers are going to carry like a badge that will give them access? And then is it all doors exterior or like the major doors where there's more traffic, like in elementary schools? where they're coming from the outside.
Yes, ma'am, it's designated doors. It's not every door, because then it would be really price prohibitive. So for example, like you think about Gadsden High School, even there we had to designate certain doors because you're looking at more than 100 doors if you do them all. So yes, the designated doors, as Mr. Smythe walked with the contractor and talked to administration, we determined like which of the doors used to go out to the back playground and which of course are the doors coming in for teachers and staff to come in the building.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening. Okay, so that concludes our discussion items. And then I'm not going to read it to you, but the one thing that I'll point is next Tuesday, not next Tuesday, December 17th, we'll have our last regular school board meeting for this year at Chaparral Elementary, and then the rest are listed there for you to plan accordingly. Any comments regarding these? With that being said, I make a motion that we enter into closed session, limited personnel matters pursuant to 10-15-1, H2 of the Open Meetings Act, NMSA 1978, as amended for superintendent and associate superintendent's report on employees on administrative leave with pay, employee grievances, and employee issues. Can you please take roll call, Ms. Delgado?
Ms. Flores,
Aye.
Mr. Lira,
Aye.
Mr. Morales,
Aye.
Ms. Murillo,
Aye.
Unanimous. We are now in closed session. Folks, have a good evening. Take care.